Okay, so before we get into the real estate buying process itself, let's create the setting and background for this buying process. So here we have the property, which we will use as an illustration for this buying process. So we have here a property that is a sub-sale property. It is a leasehold property with an individual title and is free from encumbrances. So that means the house is not under bank loan and it is fully paid off and discharged from the bank, and there is no other caveat on the property. Then in terms of price, the purchase or selling price in this case is 1 million ringgit. And for you as a buyer, you are taking a 90% margin of financing, or you're taking a 90% bank loan. So with these points, these are to help illustrate the real estate buying process in a simpler and non-complex manner. Of course, in reality, there's a lot of differences and variations when it comes to the buying process. But with this, we're just going to keep it simple and to the point. So now we're going to add in the numbers. So firstly, we have the purchase price. And to book and show some form of commitment for the property, there is the earnest deposit. And then we have the balance payment, which makes the 10% down payment, and then finally the 90% balance payment. So now we're going to put in the numbers. So the property purchase price is 1 million ringgit in this example, and the earnest deposit is 30,000 ringgit, and then the balance payment is 70,000 ringgit. So that makes 10% down payment, which is 100,000 ringgit, and of course 90%, which is 900,000 ringgit. So before we continue, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. So now we're going to go into the buying process itself. So after having viewed the property and you have negotiated on the price, the next step is to put in black and white and to start the process officially. And before we continue with the buying process, note here that this is just an example in this buying process. In reality, always refer back to the terms and conditions in the confirmation for sales form and purchase agreement. And if you're unsure about any legal terms or anything in any of the forms and agreement, please consult your lawyer or real estate agent. So now to the initial stage and the first part of the buying process, which is for the buyer and seller to sign the confirmation for sales form. Some agencies may term it as agreement to purchase, or in short also known as the ATP. And the standard practice is for the buyer to sign first and then the seller to countersign. And for the buyer, the signing goes hand in hand with the earnest deposit. So in this example, the earnest deposit is 3%, and the earnest deposit is to be paid to the agency's client account as stakeholder. The earnest deposit is not to be paid to the agent's personal account. This is according to the real estate body's rules and regulations in Malaysia. In some cases, of course, the buyers may ask for the earnest deposit to be lesser, for example, maybe like 2% earnest deposit. In such cases, it boils back to willing buyer and willing seller. And always look back at the confirmation for sales form that is signed between both parties. So after both parties have signed the confirmation for sales form or the agreement to purchase and the earnest deposit have been confirmed paid, this is the next stage of the buying process, which is for you as the buyer to apply and get bank loan approved. And once your bank loan has been approved, you can receive an offer letter from the bank, also known as the letter of offer or LO. And then also for the sales and purchase agreement to be drafted. So the standard practice for this is to be done in 21 working days. And working days means that weekends and public holidays are not inclusive. So 21 working days works out to be about 1 month. In some cases, of course, you, the buyer or the seller, may ask for a shorter period to get a bank loan and for the sales and purchase agreement to be drafted. So in some cases, of course, the working days can be shortened to 14 working days. Of course, this is back to willing buyer and willing seller, and always look back at your confirmation for sales form. So after you've gotten your bank loan approved and the letter of offer from the bank, and both parties are satisfied with the terms and conditions and the clauses in the sales and purchase agreement, we move on to the next stage, which is the signing. So the buyer and seller to sign the sales and purchase agreement, and for the balance 7% down payment to be paid to the seller. And also for you as a buyer, on your part is to sign the loan agreement with the advice of your banker. Then the next stage here involves the government, otherwise known as the state consent. This can usually take about 3 to 6 months or maybe even 12 months. The lawyers would apply for consent from the government to allow the transfer of the grant or title from the seller to the buyer. Nevertheless, consult your lawyer and refer back to the clauses in the sales and purchase agreement. Then when the consent has been obtained, the next step involves the bank. And in this part, is for the bank to release the money to the seller, which is your 90% loan or margin of financing to the seller if you got a 90% bank loan approved. And then also for the transfer of property title or grant from the seller to the buyer. So the expected time frame for this is to be completed in 3 plus 1 month. So within 3 months, the bank have to release the money to the seller and the property title be transferred to the buyer. If these are not done within 3 months, there's an extra 1 month grace period and it is interest free in the event there's any penalty involved. So this 3 plus 1 month is a standard time frame guideline. If you are not sure about this part, always consult your lawyer and refer back to the clauses in your sales and purchase agreement. So after the money has been released and the property title transferred, the buying process is completed, which leads us to this stage, which is the final stage, which is vacant possession and the handover of keys to the buyer. So the standard practice usually is about 3 to 5 working days, but again always refer back to your sales and purchase agreement and consult your lawyer. This entire process is based on the assumption that the property is a sub-sale property, leasehold, and is free from encumbrances. As for the numbers that we saw earlier, like for the earnest deposit, balance payment and down payment, we are going to fill in the blanks. And going back to the 1 million purchase price, in the beginning here we will have the 30,000 earnest deposit, which is 3%, which here makes up the 10% down payment. And when you sign the SPA, you have to pay the balance 7%, which is 70,000. So 30 plus 70 makes the 100,000 or 10% down payment. And then the 90% balance payment from the bank if you are taking a 90% bank loan. So this amounts to 900,000. So all in all, we have here the 100,000, which is 10% down payment, 900,000, which is 900,000 90% balance payment, which makes up the 1 million purchase price. So if you had any doubts on the real estate buying process, and in today's video you gain some insight and better understanding about the buying process itself, especially for sub-sale properties, which I covered in depth in my ebook My Real Estate, and you can order it online, and I'll put the links in the description below. I appreciate if you can hit the like button and subscribe to this channel to stay tuned for more.